Welcome to PDP, Prime Development Podcast. Become the leader people will follow. Howdy doody. This is your host, Johnny Bravo, coming back with part 2 in the How to Be a Superhero series. Now, just to kind of recap from last week, we went over the part 1, which is nutrition. Part 2 is going to be fitness. And we talked about just getting daily water intake of a gallon a day as a goal. Very, very simple. And I wanted to re-clarify that when I say a gallon of water a day, I'm talking of just water. So if you are, mixing shakes or using water for something else to mix something in it, and it's not just water, I'm not counting that into the number. Just because we need to make sure that we're getting adequate water on top of everything else that we're doing. Now, one other thing is that this whole How to Be a Superhero series, originally I came up with the idea more so to help myself, and then I started realizing that it was a very good way that I think I could spread and help to other people as well, because how many different goals do we have? And I know I talked about this last week, and we are trying to achieve all these different things, and so we sit there and we plan, and planning is good, but since there are so many variables, because even if we're just focusing on one area, say that you wanted to get a six-pack by the end of summer, something like that. Well, you have to consider, water intake, exercise, what type of lifting, what type of cardio to do. You have food, what you're going to eat, down to your macronutrients, vitamins, minerals, different forms of supplementation, and all of those things, obviously they go into building a healthy body, but those are a lot of variables. And when you take that and you pair it with other goals, because more than just that hour and a half of that day, or even a little bit less, you're devoted to that exercise goal, that body style that you are trying to achieve. And the rest of the day, you have other things going on. You might, you're going to work, or, you're out with your buddies, or say that, and on Sundays you're going to church, or your meditation, or whatever you're trying to do. Maybe you're just trying to catch up on bills and things like that, and get a grasp on a financial goal that you might have. Well, so you have so many different variables in just the one area, and then you take that and extrapolate it to all these different other fields. That's a lot of stuff to handle. And so since there's so many steps and so many different areas, it makes it very, very difficult, because, if we're really focused on one, we might make good progress on that one thing, but then we don't feel that sense of fulfillment at the end of the day, because we have these other areas that we're frustrated with because we're not getting anywhere. And that's just what happens when you have so many different variables to try to take control of, especially when you're not an expert in all those fields. I don't think there's any way that you can be. Otherwise, you wouldn't have any time left in the day. It would just be literally analyzing things. And one of my favorite quotes is, people never actually getting started on something because they have paralysis by analysis. And it's just a matter of figuring out how to achieve all your different goals to get to the place in life that you want to be. And that is why I came up with this idea of how to be a superhero, because we all look at people like that. I'm sure we all have role models out there. I know I do. And we look at them and we just think, oh, they can do anything. Anything they set to their mind to, they get it done. And we feel like, wow, why is their life look so good, and why do it make me feel like I'm so far behind? Well, like I said last week, it's just instilling those daily habits, and all of those things, they have learned good habits and replaced any old bad habits with more good habits. And so it's not as difficult for them at that time anymore. So those kind of people we look at, and it's like when we watch, a TV show or something, and there's the superhero of the movie, and like they're the one, like, oh, we need to call on this person to get this thing done. We know they can do it, and that is the appearance that we want to have, is that people can look at us. We don't have to say a word, and they just know that you got your stuff together and you can make things happen. So that is why I decided to start this series. And again, going over from before, I split it up into 7 categories because your brain can handle 7 categories roughly, give or take 1 or 2 at a time, without becoming overwhelmed or forgetting something. And so if we have all of these different overwhelming variables and we lump them into these 7 categories of nutrition, fitness, career, financial, relationships, mindset, and fashion / good looks and appearance, that right there takes all of those variables and lumps them into 7 areas. And then all you have to do is each week do one thing in each of those 7 areas. And when you do that, that's a lot easier to handle. And if you do it until it becomes a habit, you don't have to think about it anymore, then you can move on to the next step, and you know why you're doing what you were doing. And then at the end of the day, you go to bed, and you're like, oh, I feel pretty good. Look, I progressed in this area and this area and this area. And you feel like you're like slowly, you're just, wrapping everything in, taking control of your life and going in the direction that you want. And so this week, I wanted to talk about the fitness portion of it. So part 2, week 1, and with the fitness aspect, all that I wanted to propose as a starting goal is just to move. And when I say that, a really good measurement or a number, and everyone's heard about this now, but it's to hit a goal of 10,000 steps a day. All right. Now, 10,000 steps, if you have a tracker, that's awesome. But basically what that is doing is it's ensuring that you're getting movement, and getting movement obviously is essential to burning calories. And especially in today's society, we don't have to go hunt and gather our food anymore. So a lot of us are stuck sitting in an office chair, or we're driving a truck, or whatever it might be, and the amount of movement that we do is a lot less. If you're fortunate enough out there to have a job where it is very physical and you're moving around a lot, that is a plus, because that really does help to keep your body weight and your level of activity and caloric burn pretty stable. It's a good thing. For those of us that don't, like I recently made a switch and I don't get as many steps anymore, I have to make it a priority to actually just get out and move. And so whether that's going to the gym or going for a walk or a bike ride or something, just get out there and move. But to make it a very easy, targetable goal, the 10,000 steps is very, very helpful. And the whole 10,000 steps thing actually came about. It was from a study done in Japan back in the 60s. And basically they were suggesting that hitting that goal of 10,000 steps elevated your caloric burn by about 20%. Now, when doing that, it wasn't until about the 90s that goal kind of came to the U.S. and made mainstream news. And when they did that, and they did some more research studies, and they found on average, about 10,000 steps a day significantly improved people's caloric burn. Also, there was about a 2% increase in brain activity and brain function over the course of the first 8 weeks. So, just getting that little bit of mental edge for work. They also noticed that on average, people that got about 10,000 steps a day as opposed to the average of about 3,000 or 4,000, people were actually increasing their amount that they made at work by about $2,500 a year. And I think this was back in the 90s when they did this, so I'm sure it's changed since then. But, who doesn't want just an increase in pay and brain function just from hitting 10,000 steps a day? That's wonderful. But getting that goal is something to achieve each day of 10,000 steps. And even if you want to add in getting to the gym just a couple days a week, just get out there and move, because doing that will set you on that path of getting that whole picture of how you want your life to be like, because you're instilling that as a good habit, very simple habit, and then you can move on to the next step. But get out there and move, because it's just giving you that edge over everybody else that's out there.